Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Michael Fillios, founder and CEO of IT Ally and a CDO editorial board member. And we are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Brad Burke, Chief Engineering and Data Officer at American Family Insurance. Brad, welcome to the show.
Great. That's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
In some of my other conversations or some of the events that we've had, the topic of data ethics has come up quite a bit. Is that something that you guys are talking about there and see any formalizing of a role like that in the organization?
Yeah, I'd say just because it's an interesting sort of multi-layered problem. And so a lot of different disciplines come together. So I would say right now we have a working group that is myself as Chief Data Officer, our Chief Legal Officer, and our Chief Risk Officer. And we are really involved in sort of a program to create a program around the responsible use of data and AI. And so we're heavily invested in getting that together. And it's already been a journey that's been going on for a while and will continue to go on for a while. And I think it's as important as sort of the cyber movement. And I think if you think about three tiers of defense inside of a company, the first tier, then risk, then audit, it's really how do we all work together right now to make sure that we have all the right things in place. And again, it brings a lot of disciplines because when you start talking about the responsible use of data, you want to make sure you source it responsibly, but then you want to bring in consumer privacy to make sure you're taking care of your consumers. So it kind of pulls a whole bunch of threads together into one area, and it can get to we want to make sure that all of our models going to production are going through a standard CI/CD process. Now they call that ML ops or machine learning ops, but it's really the same concept that our other software goes through, which is how do you have, test-driven development? How do you have unit testing? How do you put it out to production? And one part of those tests should be what's the impact on society of these models, right? And I think that's still a gray area to land on what the right measures for all that is, but we're definitely working on it.
Understood. So we did a little digging and we found a couple of articles in the newsroom there. One of them that talked about how passionate you are about data-driven products, and that's coming through, I think, loud and clear here. But as you think about this new era, an intersection of enhancements in data science, the availability of storage inexpensively and CPU on demand, tell us how all these products come together in your world and how has made this possible to achieve.
Yeah, again, I think, it's just hard to believe as I think through the various decades of my career, the different problems we were trying to solve. In the 90s, when I was doing SAP, we did have to take delivery of $1 million server overnight because we couldn't close payroll. And those were real problems that we had. And it's just, those are so cute now when you look at what you can do with the cloud. You can spin up 1,000 servers in a second if you'd like to. It's just amazing. So the opportunity, this is why it's such a great time to do new companies too, is the opportunities are just there. You don't need to get a huge check to have the scale of a massive company. Like you can just start coding and then it will scale up. So I think that opportunity is amazing. I think the opportunity for insurance is great too, because the challenges are great, with weather and everything else. This is just a random example, but I have a ton of home IoT here in my house monitoring things. I put in a device recently that watches water, and all of a sudden I find out I'm wasting 60 gallons a half an hour on a particular leak that's intermittent in my house, and it shuts all the water off in my house. And that's great. I get it fixed. And it's like, those are the types of things that we can get installed for our customers now. And telematics, the same thing. There's tons of assuming we do it in a way that respects consumers. We do it in a way that provides value for people and doesn't feel creepy, that we really are trying to protect people and their dreams like that. There's tons of opportunity for us to use all the data that's available to protect people better, And so I'm super excited about those things. That was probably a winding answer, but I got you there.
No, you got me there. And I think the use cases are limitless, which is what we're starting to see. It's no longer about the tech. It's about the usability of it. And we talk about small businesses and how, we can level the playing field now for small businesses because of this great technology.
Well, I think it's an amazing, I'll just go off on that for just a second. we obviously are in very unique times that have created just, tragic outcomes. But these are the times in which the new ideas get created. So for the small businesses out there or the startups, this may not be the easiest time to get started, but this is the right time to go out and do something, because these are the times when the new companies get created. So I think it's a really exciting time for them.
Yeah, would agree. I mean, and you can experiment, right, and fail and experiment again. So it's something that companies need to get used to.
Yeah.
So we'll shift gears here again, Brad, and talk about being a leader in this field of data science. What advice would you give to a young professional or a student in terms of preparing them for this field that's changing very dynamically? And what attributes would you tell them are the most beneficial in pursuing a career in this field?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, there's just going to continue to be more data created. I mean, we all know that. You can see the different charts that say that billions of zettabytes of data are being created all the time. So we're going to need data science so that we can understand it. Mm-hmm. Human in the loop data science does make things better. And so we'll continue to invest in data science. That's no question. I think the change for me is it's got to be an and. Being just a pure play, I shouldn't say just, because it's a hard degree, but just having data science, I don't think is going to be enough. I think you've got to team that up with a building skill like data engineering or software. Like, I think you really have to understand how things get built, as well as understand how business gets done. So have a little bit of business acumen, because one of the things that's really interesting is I would probably take a less sophisticated model where someone understood the features really well, rather than a super sophisticated model where the scientists just jammed a ton of features into it because they didn't necessarily understand it. And for my data friends out there, it's kind of like putting a warehouse together with a bunch of dimensions you don't understand, and you don't know if they're high cardinality or low cardinality. It's the same thing. You've got to understand the data. So if you understand the data, you're probably on a good path to understanding how to model that data with data science. So for people out there who've maybe been in data warehousing, but have a ton of industry experience or really understand the dimensions in your warehouses, you may find that you're further along than you realize in your journey, and that you could actually transition over. So for the more junior people in this field, get your data science degrees, but try to get some business experience, try to get some building experience. For those people who have building and business experience and understand the data, go take a few courses online. You may find out that you can transform your career faster than you'd realize.
Yeah, that's some good advice. Definitely. I think that holds true. And when you think about also now hiring these kinds of folks and this great resignation that everyone feels at the moment, I think that we're in, how do you go about retaining your talent? What are some of the steps that you take to ensure that people continue to be passionate and want to work at that company, and given all the career choices that might be in front of them?
Yeah, it's definitely, I sometimes wonder now if we're not near the tail end of that particular, given some of the things that are going on in the economy. But it's definitely the great resignation has been a thing for, we can talk for a number of reasons why it is. But, I think you've got to understand what your strengths are in your company. So when I was a small business or a startup, it was about some of the different things that environment could provide you. When I'm in sort of American Family, it's really about like the career, like what is the career path you're going to have, and how do I help you develop from who you are and what you're going to do, and how do you jump from the next thing to another. And that's how I try to retain talent within my teams, is think about the same way I did. I have more stability, but what opportunities can I provide people to keep growing their resumes, keep growing their careers, not let someone sit inside something it's very easy to get an employee who's good at something and say they should sit there for the rest of their lives. In a big company that can happen, but I got to keep moving around, keep giving them new experiences, keep retraining them and making them feel. Now, does that sometimes increase my, or decrease my retention? Yeah, because they get hired away. But that's a dynamic staff that's really exciting. So I think continuing to provide opportunities internally, continuing to provide, like, you can you can come here, you can have a family, and you can have a really great work-life balance. And something like American Family, that's something that people really embrace. We also have, other opportunities. Like we have a really strong ventures arm. So if someone's startup bug starts flaring up, I can kind of push them up towards. So I think just trying to make sure that I have a full breadth of experiences for people is probably my best defense, rather than, to be honest with you, I kind of pulled back on hiring a little bit through this irrational wage situation that's been going on, because if you've been in the career for a while, you've seen this before. Mm-hmm. And you don't like what happens on the other side of it, which is if the IT market falls apart again, like it did at the end of the .com era, it's a whole different situation. So I've just been kind of watching and seeing what's going on. It's just been a very interesting time. I've even canceled some projects because this is just not the time, Sure. So it's been interesting.
What about the fact, and I think you're in the suburbs of Chicago, right?
Yes.
What about the fact of now that you have access to talent anywhere, let's say in the country, has that changed things for you in terms of?
100%. I mean, the headquarters of American Family is in Madison, Wisconsin. So that right there shows you that they've changed quite dramatically. Yeah, I think as we think of, I think everyone's got some sort of talent now strategy or some sort of next strategy going on because of COVID inside their companies. And we're trying to say, what would it be like if we're all over the country? Well, the reality is we are now all over the country. And I think we've got things we could learn from some of our consulting brethren in thinking about regional leadership, as far as rather than sort of like, American Families in Madison, this company's here, that company's there, those are our headquarters. Like really thinking about how we create a regional leadership across the entire company so that we can take care of people in each region and each location. I do feel like people, even when I had startups and let's say I had 3 people in a city, I'd put a WeWork location up or some sort of template. I do think people need a physical place. And some people don't, but a lot of people need a physical place to come together every so often. So we're still trying to figure that out. But I love the opportunity. I think it was Elasticsearch that maybe they're not anymore, but in their beginnings, they were a completely virtual company. I always thought that was so neat. And now all of us are like that. I do think it introduces challenges that professors still need to write books about, leading through, a completely virtualized organization and trying to figure out what moments that matter to bring everyone together. But I think it's a great thing that got introduced as a result of a challenging situation.
Sure. I mean, not to belabor the point, but I think also in this field of data analytics, certain universities are turning out and offering up this level of education far greater than some others, right? So you mentioned the pool of talent is going to vary region to region, state by state.
100%. Yeah. And it's just if one company goes down and there's a whole bunch of people in one concentrated area, you can bring them online, you can open an office in that location and you can move forward, it's just, and I think I never, through any of my startups, ever moved for a job. Yeah. And I think it's one of the most disrupting things you can do to a family. So I think it is like nice that we're trying to figure this. I mean, now I might agree with some people. There are certain jobs that require you to be in a geography or be where you need to be. So but I think it's good that we can let people try out jobs or let people do things in a remote way and then make some decisions based on how those jobs are working out. It's a much better way.
Absolutely. Well, listen, let's peer into the future a little bit, whatever time frame you want to consider here and think about what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that you would predict for CDOs in the next several years. And in light of everything that we just talked about, right? Whether it's evolving tech, it's talent, it's data governance, it's all those things. Consumer demand, so on and so forth. What's your prediction for the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to just say cybersecurity, all those things. You just kind of feel like that one's, if I say that that's an important one, I'm probably winning in some way.
Are you guys underwriting cyber liability insurance? Yeah,
I mean, I can get you an agent for this if that's what you want, just ransomware, all those things. I think that is just going to continue to be a shadow in everything we do. And also making sure that we continue to assert consumer rights. I think transparency and how we can't be transparent enough in how we use consumers' information to make the decisions that we do. And so I think there's still a lot of work to be done in those various areas. I think for CDOs in general, it's making sure that we're getting the return on the investments that we're doing. Are we really getting a return on the data science investments we're doing? What is the cost of ownership of data science? What's the maintenance cycle of that look like? And then how do you create, like what I was talking about before, these sort of centralized and federated teams for data? I just think the skill sets are changing so much right now that all of the, sort of the HR principles around how to run data teams and how they should be set up and everything are kind of in question right now. So I think we have a lot of time to think about like how these teams should be structured and the skill sets you need. How does that team up with the business? That stuff is usually on my mind. Sure. Along with the return on those investments. So I think those, and then, we talked a little about me being a data product person, but I think that's a really big deal. Like I think chief data officers should really think about the data products, just like their CTO friend or their CIO friend worries about their software products. Like we really should be creating a set of products that we offer to our businesses rather than just being a warehouse team or whatever. So those are some provocative things.
I like that. No, I mean, I continue to see, having been a CIO in numerous Fortune 500 companies, I continue to see a lot of parallels with the CDO role evolution and the CIO role evolution. And it took CIOs a very, very long time to figure it out, and they're still figuring it out, right? Yep. But nonetheless, the pace and speed at which the CDO role has evolved and has come to certainly is going to accelerate, I think, some of that decisioning or figuring it out. So it's exciting times ahead, nevertheless, and really appreciate, Brad, you taking some time for joining us today. And for the audience to learn more about CDO Magazine or to view more interviews, please visit cdomagazine.tech. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.